Welcome to the Happy Half Hour with Steve-O and Mojo. We're here to celebrate your freedom on Freedom Independence Day, Eve, July 3rd, 2025.
Come on, gotta throw some free for all in there. Give me some free for all.
So we're gonna have a free for all, not just free for me, not just free for you, but free for all. Yeah, free for all, free for all.
Is anyone else getting the idea that I could just keep feeding Joe lines and we could sing for this entire next half hour?
Absolutely. That's right. That would be fun. Let's do that one day.
When it's a free-for-all, that's kind of what this next half is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a free-for-all, right? But a free-for-all, you mentioned this earlier when we were talking right before we came on here. And by the way, this is, like Joe likes to say, this is totally unscripted.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about what we might want to talk about, but we don't plan this out. We just go where it goes because we don't think you have to plan it out. We're full. We have the message in us. Like I said, I'm a messenger. I'm here to help. I do that by bringing healing. I bring encouragement. I make people laugh. I make people ponder. That's why we started Happy Life Studios, to help you navigate, activate, and advocate your happy life. Joe, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Then I want to jump into this concept of free for all when you're finished.
Yeah. So I am Joseph Mojo McCarthy. Call me Mojo online. That's my brand. In fact, I've got it branded here on my wrist, although it's upside down. It looks like a W, but if you turn it over, it's an M. It's M for Mojo. And it's just like my brother here, Steve-O, it's my hope, my attention, my prayer. The time spent with us isn't time just spent. It's actually time invested in you, because as you invest in you, as Warren Buffett would say, that is the number one investment of all.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Tony Robbins actually asked Warren Buffett one time. He said, "So what's the smartest investment you ever made? What's the smartest investment I should make?" When Tony Robbins was much younger, and Warren Buffett says to Tony Robbins, he says, "Well, you're already doing it." Tony's like, "I'm doing what? I'm doing lots of things. What are you talking about?" He says, "You invest in yourself."
Yeah.
He's like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, the one investment that you will never ever regret and will always pay great dividends is investment in you." So all that to say, if you've joined us for the Happy Half Hour today or any time along the way, it's our intention. It's the purpose we're here is to pour, as we like to say, digital courage rather than liquid courage, so that we can share what we've learned with you, and hopefully it will light a spark and it'll start a fire, and you'll just go and do something with your life that we can't do, because it takes all of us. It takes all of us, Steve. It's a free for all, not just a free for one.
Yes, it is. And when you think of free for all, though, I tend to think of all-star wrestling. Like when I was a kid, my dad took me to one once.
Yeah,
it was
baby.
awesome. Jimmy Superfly Snuka. We had this dude that would show up, the short little, just stocky dude with beard hair, facial hair everywhere, and he would always eat a sausage and breathe on people. And but a free-for-all was when by the way, Laura just sent us a rose. And that's the first gift that they've ever sent. Thank you, Laura. That is awesome. That might be the first rose I've received, actually. Who knows? I think it is one of the first ones. Anyway, thank you for that, Laura. We sure appreciate it. If I knew how to do it on the app, I'd do it on the app. But anyway, a free-for-all was when everyone would just jump into the ring, and it was chaos. It was just total chaos. But we do that a lot with words. Joe, you do it even more than me because you're a wordsmith. But words mean a lot, right? And we're seeing free-for-all not quite the same way. It's not chaotic the way we see it, huh, Joe?
Yeah. Well, so I was thinking about that. This actually came up, Steve and I, as Steve said, it's just unscripted. We just had an idea, and we're going to see where it goes. But the idea of a free-for-all, which sounds super fun, right? Well, it is fun. It's fun for everybody. It's free for all, not free for some, not free for one, but free for all. And I think this is quite an underrated idea, this free-for-all idea. So I'm going to go a little more personal here as we get here in our second half hour for today. And my Uncle Gil, as Steve-O has heard, my Uncle Gil was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. And he became a squadron leader because he's an exceptional guy. He's kind of a larger-than-life superhero to me. He was actually shot down 5 times in Vietnam, twice behind enemy lines. He was given Purple Hearts. He was given Medals of Honor. And I just thought, man, this guy, he's like a real life superhero. How did he survive? And there's a lot of stories he wouldn't tell me because he didn't want me to have to be traumatized by the trauma that he'd bore in his body. But he did talk about, that on the last week before he was to come home, there was this policy that if you made it to the last week of your tour, you don't have to go into combat. They don't want you to die the last week before you to go see your mom, right? So my Uncle Gil got to the last week of his tour of duty, and they said, "Hey, Gil, you're free. You can just sit back and just take it easy and stay back here in the camp." And Michael Gill's like, "Yeah, but all the guys I lead, they're going into battle, and they're going into battle without their leader. We've been together." And he says, "I know from experience, many of them aren't coming back." He says, I can't sit here and just watch that from a distance.
Wow.
Can I respectfully decline my freedom to sit back while all my buddies are going into battle?" And they said, "Well, that's your choice." So he strapped on and he led his comrades into battle. Many of them did not come back from that battle. My uncle survived. But I'm as a little kid, I'm hearing these stories going, what kind of courage does that take, right? The last week before you get to go home and you're like, I'm going to go into the battle instead of away from it. And so this is really interesting, Steve. Why? What's my uncle's motivation? One, he loved his comrades. He loved the band of brothers, right? And he didn't want them to go into battle without him. He loved his country. That's why he ended up in Vietnam in the first place, even though his country didn't love him because Vietnam was such a controversial war.
Yeah.
He loved his family, and he wanted his family, including me, his nephew, to be able to have the freedom that we enjoyed in the United States, which was being threatened, right? And so it was love that motivated my uncle to go into battle, to put himself in harm's way with a good possibility of dying a week before he was to come home. It was love. And I think this tie-in of love and freedom is not talked about nearly enough. And so that's what Steve and I want to dig into. How is love and freedom, how is it tied together? And we hinted at this last half hour. Steve, what comes to mind?
I want to say hi to Wendy first. Wendy said hi. So
Hey, Wendy.
Wendy, thanks for joining us. Wendy, I've known her for many years. I'm glad you're on the live here. Well, we talked about it last episode a little bit, a quote from Hazel Scott that just said, listen, whoever walked behind somebody else into freedom, that she said, or he said, I'm not sure what the pronouns are, but Hazel then said, I want to go into this with you hand in hand. That's what it's all about. And there's another statement that we use at the very end that actually came from the Bible. And it talked about how, if you say I'm free and I can do whatever I want to do, because that's why Jesus, talk about the Bible here, Jesus showed up to set people free, to make people free. Okay. So because all these people got free, but then because they're free, they started using their freedom and started doing things that really bothered other people, hurt other people. And there's something, my podcast I just put out today, we talk a little bit about that being triggered and talk about, it's a really good podcast. You need to check it out. I think that there's a lot of people today need to listen to that podcast because it talks a lot about walking on eggshells and how that can be a very negative thing. However, what Paul said in this statement in the Bible, he said, if you say I'm free and I can do whatever I want, and then you use because we do that in America, it's a free country, I can do what I want. We used to do it a lot more in the 70s and 80s, and we'd always say that it's a free country. Don't do that. It's a free country. I can do what I want. Well, Paul laid it out. He says, if you use your freedom and do whatever you want and destroy someone else's freedom in the process, you're not free anymore. Nelson Mandela, we talked about in the last episode. Nelson Mandela talked about how freedom is more than just casting off the chains. It's about enhancing somebody else's freedom. It's about making somebody else free. If we're not doing this thing together, we're not truly free, in my opinion. It's all about that. That's why, you mentioned it before we even went online about how when we talk about where we possibly want to go and we read some of these quotes and such, you said, I don't want to take the words out of your mouth. You said something along the lines of this. When you hear people talk about freedom, they don't talk about it in the way that we're going to talk about it. Do you remember what you said there?
Yeah. Well, see, I think, and this is new to me as well, I don't talk about this very much either, and I'm glad we're doing it today, is this connection, a really strong connection that I haven't seen very clearly or talked about, is that true love is what freedom's all about. And freedom actually has love built into it. And I didn't really make this connection. I just talked about the love that my uncle had for his comrades, for his family, for his country, which is why he was willing to sacrifice, right? And in fact, if you brought Jesus into the conversation, the reason Jesus died, was tortured, wasn't because he did anything wrong. He was the one person that didn't do anything wrong. but he did it because he knew that that was a loving thing. He would sacrifice his life so that others didn't have to suffer. And I think, wow, that's really what freedom is tied into, is that if I'm willing to use my freedom to set others free or to
Yeah.
protect their freedom,
Yeah.
that's the best possible use of freedom. As what the
Yeah.
opposite Steve says, if I use my freedom to abuse others, well, then they're not free and neither am I. And the picture that came to mind when you were talking about this, Steve, was imagine a prison cell. There's 30, 40 people all in this dank, dark, terrible conditions.
Dungeon.
Yeah, dungeon. And the door's open and one person goes out and he closes the door behind him and says, so long, suckers. And he runs out,
Wow.
and guess what? He gets shot
Wow.
because he's all alone. Or the door gets unlocked somehow. The dog with the keys in his mouth, like from Pirates of the Caribbean, finally drops off the keys and he unlocks the door. He opens the door and he says, we can all go, and we can all go together, arm in arm, not in front of each other, not behind each other. We all go together, and then we can fight off the tyranny together, right? There's a chance we could win this war, right? But man, if I open my door to whatever freedom I've got, and I slam it in the face of somebody else, I've actually put myself in prison. I'm behind a cage now, just on the other side, right?
Can you explain that? Like,
yes.
if I shut the door behind me in my freedom journey, I imprison myself. Talk about that. There's some power to that statement right there.
Yeah. So, and this is just coming out of my mouth and coming out of my heart as we're talking about it right now, is that I'm thinking, like, let's put it in a Star Wars theme just for fun. Stormtroopers, right, are all around it, and all the rebels are stuck in a cell.
You want me to do the music in the background?
Yeah, would you? If somehow, some way, R2D2 opens up the lock from the door and it comes open, and only one of the rebels runs out, that rebel actually is at the great mercy is a target to all the stormtroopers, right? And it's going to be pretty easy for the stormtroopers to pluck that one off if they only go out one by one. But imagine the door comes open, instead of Han Solo saying, I'm on my own, suckers, you guys are, good luck. He says, let's all go together, and en masse they remove themselves from the cell. Now they're an army, right? Now they're a force to be reckoned with because they're free together, and they know what it means to be incarcerated. They know what it means to not be free. So they've got a reason to fight, and they'll fight for each other to be free. And I'm thinking, how easy is it for me to say, oh, I'm free, but too bad for you. And what I'm doing is actually, I'm changing the cell. I'm actually reversing the cell where I'm the one that's all locked into my own thoughts and my own, I become the vulnerable one.
Yeah, that's what we need to remember, particularly those that are in America. We're in a free country, right? But then to use our freedom to hate other people, to use our freedom to judge other people, to use our freedom to, Laura said something in here, and Laura, let me know if that the echoing is going away. But she said something, do whatever you want as long as it's moral and legal, and I agree with that. But there's some things that are moral and legal that if I do, I'm still going to hurt somebody else's situation. So I'm just going to pull back on that. I'll do it when they're not around necessarily, because if like I was saying, we live in America, but if we're going to stereotype people and say, well, they're Democrat, they're Republican, they're like this. Well, they're anti this. They're pro this. Their pronouns are this.
Anti-dentite, Jerry.
What's that?
Kramer, you're an anti-dentite, Jerry.
Yeah, that's right. That's the dentist. He was an
right.
Yeah, Jerry. Yeah,
anti-dentite.
I like what because it goes right along with what Eric Fromm said. ERICH-FROMM. He said that the affirmation of one's own life, happiness, growth, and freedom. So the affirmation of my happiness and my freedom is rooted in my capacity to love. So to live in a free country, but then to hate other people in that country because they don't agree with us, there's something about what makes America great are all these different cultures coming together. And boy, it's like a gumbo, man. You just throw all these cultures in the pot and you just let them. That's where we learn from. There's so much we can learn from each other that disagree with us. And by the way, you can't really know what you believe until you come across somebody you disagree with and have a conversation in a healthy way, not trashing each other. But freedom grows it starts by our capacity to love each other, and it grows in our capacity to love each other as well. I got some other quotes in there, but just let me turn it over to you for that. I mean, to live in a free country, but then to use my freedom to just do what I want and then hinder other people. And I'm not talking about walking on eggshells here. That's a whole nother ball game. That's way too far on the other side. I did a podcast on that. Search Happy Life Studios, and you'll find that podcast. Listen to it because I think it's really good. But what I'm talking about here is when I love other people that I disagree with, when I respect other people, I have to read it. It's from Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. So if I want to be free, Nelson Mandela is spot on here. I need to live in a way that's going to respect and enhance the freedom of others. And that to me is what makes a great country. That's what makes a great neighborhood. That's what makes a great human, is somebody or some people who can learn to respect as well as enhance.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you have to agree with them.
Right.
You can still enhance their life,
Yeah.
enhance their experience, enhance whatever their viewpoint, whatever, enhance their freedom.
Yeah. So I was thinking about my Uncle Gil again now. So my Uncle Gil had very strong opinions about things that he believed and didn't believe, but he wasn't fighting just for the people who believed what he believed. He was fighting so that everybody could have their own viewpoint without killing each other. Right?
Come on.
Right?
Right.
Yes. And this is back in Vietnam. So this is back in 1969 ish. I was probably 3, 4 years old. He came back, I think, at 71 or 72. And I can still remember when he came back, again, this larger than life superhero, but he didn't fight in Vietnam so that everybody would believe the same thing and say the same thing and be in the same party and be like a homogenous country. He
Right.
fought he fought for the freedom of people to have difference of opinion without murdering each other,
Yeah.
without killing each other. And imagine now you fast forward, you think that the future is progress. Well, I gotta wonder, because I look in social media and I know it's skewed, the things that we see, because we get fed all the bad news rather than all the good news. But there's a lot of evidence that we live in a country that's theoretically built on the freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of religion, and yet we've divided ourselves into mine versus yours.
Yeah.
And once we've
Yeah.
done that, we're no longer one country, right? We're two countries. Now
We're not the United States. We
No.
become the divided states, and then our freedom goes right out the window as well.
Yeah, it becomes civil war. And in fact, when I was watching this years ago, I watched the Netflix documentary about, what was it called? It's about the internet and why it's dividing us, because the supercomputers feed you more of what you're looking for, and then you think that's the whole narrative, and you wonder, you think everybody else is crazy, right? The Social Dilemma is the name of that particular idea, but this continues to play itself out in our society, in a country where people came from all different places with all different belief systems, some with no belief system, to land in a country where whatever I believed, whatever country I was from, whatever my background was, I could actually live and breathe and operate without the fear of the tyranny of being judged, of being imprisoned unfairly, right? That's what soldiers fight for. That's what Independence Day is about. But I think, Steve, I'd like to throw this in here. I think Independence Day got misnamed. I think a better way to describe that would be Interdependence Day.
Yeah.
Because we live in a country where, yes, I'm independent, which means this is my land and my thing, and I can do whatever I want, and to hell with the rest of you, right? But man, then we all get into these little silos, countries of one. No, we are one nation under God, one nation, the entire nation, regardless of your belief system and your political party. So I think it should be called Interdependence Day, because this is where we've learned how to be different and yet work together as one. And in fact, if all of us were nails and there was no boards, you're not going to build a country. If all of us were boards, no nails, it's not going to hold together very long. We need bricks, we need mortar, we need all the different parts and pieces, and we need to honor the fact that I'm not like you, but we're still under one nation, under one God.
It was like these two guys were were building this house, and they were pounding the boards in, and one guy was handing the other guy the nails, the other guy was pounding them in, and every few nails or so, a guy would throw a nail out. He handed him a nail, he'd throw a nail out. After a while, man, an hour or so, the guy said, "Why do you keep throwing those nails out?" And the guy said, "Well, because they're facing the wrong direction." The guy said, "You idiot. We could have saved them for the other side of the house." But that's what we're doing. We're throwing out nails that we can build something with because they're facing the other direction.
Pointed the wrong direction. Exactly.
There's another side of house that we need to build, right? And you did this great. I want to get back to your, don't let me forget. I want to get to Gil before I'm done here.
Sure.
But you had this great illustration a couple talks ago that we had a couple shows ago where you said if we were both facing a clock, but it was a glass clock, completely clear, and I saw it from one side, you saw it from the other side, one of us would say, "It's going clockwise." And they would say, "No, it's not. The hands are going counterclockwise." "No, they're not. They're going clockwise. You're wrong. You're stupid. Throw the nail out," right? And we start getting mad at each other. Well, wait a minute. Come around and see it from my perspective. Yes. And you might change your mind just a little bit. That doesn't mean you have to agree with everybody. It doesn't mean that at all. Because we have each are shaped different. We have different experiences. We have different talents and personalities and different way we were raised. But Gil, talk about we are united. We are united. That's freedom comes from being united. Yeah. And Gil, at what you talked the last story in the last show, Gil was given a chance his last week to not have to take any more runs after being shot down 5 times, many times behind enemy lines. He was shot down. So they said, "This is your last week. You're still alive. Go home and stay alive. Just you don't have to go on any missions." And he went on those missions. And Joe, you said it because you said it so well, because he went back for the people.
Yeah.
But it wasn't more than just the people, because they had become, if that would have happened the first week that he was there, right, you know, he would have stayed behind.
Sure.
But after he was there for years, they were no longer soldiers. Right. They were friends.
They're brothers.
And I guarantee some got on his, you know, if you watch a Band of Brothers or any of those shows like that, The Pacific, there's some cool shows out there that talk about World War II and show stories of World War II, right? Well, they're getting on each other's nerves. When you're in battle, when you're stressed, you say things, you do things that later on you regret, right? But when you're in the same foxhole together, you tend to forgive each other and you tend to see each other. Gil didn't see them as soldiers. He saw them as humans. We got to stop seeing people as their gender, right, or as their political party. They're not a Democrat. They're not a Republican. They're not a trans. They're not straight. They're a human.
Yeah.
Right. And if they don't agree back with you, that's fine. My freedom isn't relying upon whether they agree with me or not. But as far as I'm concerned, and I'll go back to this really quick. Brene Brown, I just listened to an audiobook from her, and she talked about how she was that really upset and seeing her therapist, and her therapist said, "Well, do you think this other person that you're upset with is doing their best?" And she was like, "No, there's no way she's doing her best." You know? So then she went, she's a researcher. So she went and did all of her research with all of her tens of thousands of people again and said, "Do you think people are doing their best?" Right. And the people that on her research that have already over the years, these are the people that seem to be wholehearted people, she calls them. They seem to be your happiest people. They just seem to have their act together. Almost all of them said, "Yes, we believe people are doing their best." She asked her husband, because she didn't want to believe this, right? She said, "Do you think people are doing their best?" He didn't answer. He just thought about it. About 15 minutes later, he says, "You know, I don't know if people are doing their best or not. But what I do know is my life's a lot happier when I believe that they are."
Yes. Say it again. So good. Powerful.
I don't know if people are doing their best or not. But all I know is that my life is happier. I'm freer when I choose to believe that they actually are. And we have to start seeing people. Don't see them as a person on the highway, on the exit ramp, on the entry ramp, holding a sign saying "need." It's so easy to judge. It is so anyone can judge. That is so easy. But that is a human being right there. That's a real live human being. And if you became their friend, you would have a different mentality. And maybe we need to start taking some time to get to know some people. And then it all changes, because when you know them as humans, you're like, okay, you know, like if you have a hard time with straight people, when you become a friend of a straight person, that changes. And the opposite is true. If you can't stand Republicans, become a friend of one. And then all of a sudden that begins to change. You might think they're stupid for their policy and what they think, but they're still your friend. right? Same is true when it comes to Democrats. It doesn't matter. We need to stop. If we want to live in freedom, we've got to stop judging because, and I'm going to turn it over to you with your own very own quote where you said, the highest form of love is free of judgment, which produces, I probably said it wrong there, which produces true freedom.
Yeah.
That's the highest form of love. It's the highest form of freedom is when we love without judgment.
Yeah. So, two things I want to say before we end this particular episode. One is that community is not communison. Community is not communison. Here's what I mean by that is that when I'm in a community of people, it doesn't mean we all are exactly the same. That would be communison, unison, right? It's not called communison, it's called community. Community means that a bunch of different people are together for one purpose and we're getting along with each other. And the other thing that came to mind when you're saying that, Steve, is there's this person, I don't know who it was online, saying that he thinks that one of the keys to that to solve many of the issues that we're having in our society is what he calls the neighbor mentality. He says we can say lots of bad things about a lot of people because they're out there somewhere, but if it's my neighbor, well, now hold on. I'm going to defend them, right? Even if my neighbor looks different,
Right.
talks different, believes different, hey,
Yep.
that's my neighbor, right? And I might not even talk to him for the last year, but don't touch my neighbor. It's in my neighborhood, right? And I'm like, wow, that's so good, right? So if I could just remember that my neighbor isn't just the person who lives next door. And Jesus answered this question very specifically. He was asked, okay, well, if the greatest commandment is to love your neighbor, well, who's your neighbor? Because, the Pharisees wanted to figure out, well, who can I love and who can I not love?
Right.
Jesus flipped the whole thing on his head. He said, guess what? The neighbor is you. You're the neighbor. You decide, right? And if you're the neighbor, that means anybody and everybody you come in contact with is someone that you're going to defend. Like, hey,
So good.
you don't call that person bad. You stay away from my neighbor, right? My
Right.
sister had, if you ever remember the Peanuts gang with Snoopy and Charlie Brown, my sister was Lucy. She was like the meanest, toughest badass in the neighborhood. We wouldn't let her play football with us because she tackled too hard. And she was the first one to say, nobody touches my brother. Only I can beat up my brother, right? She would take on anybody and everybody. But it's that mentality. If, like with my Uncle Gil, the reason he went back into battle with 1 week left of his tour is because they were his brothers.
Yes.
And I'm saying, Steve-O, you and I are both saying, if we could understand that my neighbor and my brother isn't just the person who lives in my house or even lives in my neighborhood, it's every other human being. And actually, how do I know that? Because I'm the neighbor. That's the Jesus message, right? That the neighbor isn't who they are, it's who I am. And if I'm going to be neighborly, I'm going to love everybody. I'm going to give them respect. I don't have to agree with them. It's not communison, it's community. And that's what we're celebrating on Independence Day, is that we can live free together, free to disagree without hurting each other.
And if we can't do it with you, if I can't do it with you, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Like Hazel Scott said, whoever walked behind anyone to freedom. If we can't go hand in hand, I don't want to go. And, it might be hard to love some people, but I think it's harder to not. I think it's harder to hate. And I think it's harder because when you love people, no matter what, and it's something we will have to work on. I mean, none of us are there, right? I'm just better at it than I used to be. That's all. And I hope I didn't come across too preachy there. I got a little excited because
judgmental.
This is a very important topic for our country right now and for the world right now, in my opinion. And there are forces out there, whether they're using the internet or using people, whatever, but there are forces that are darker than this, that are deeper than this, that are trying to separate us into saying those are those people and you're not one of them, they're not one of you. And that's ridiculous. I've got a lot of friends that I disagree with. It's harder to not love because when you love people, and yeah, it takes some work to love some people. Some people aren't always, some people usually love people that are more like you, right? But freedom comes in our capacity to love. And so if you want to be free, just work on your capacity to love. That's all. Just become a better lover of people, not a lover that gets something in return, but a lover that says, I'm just going to love you because you're you, and be yourself. The world needs you, and your happy you is your best you. So your free you is your happy you, and your free you is the loving you. And there you have it. Free for all, baby. If it's not free for all, it's not free at all.
That's right. It's not free for all. It's not free at all. That's really good. And so I'm going to demonstrate what we're talking about with Steve before we close. I'm going to disagree with what Steve said, and it doesn't mean I love him any less. I think
See, and this is going to prove what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I think, contrary to what Steve just said, I think it is easier to hate. I think hate is kind of the default. That it is tougher to love somebody because that means I have to get to know them, right? Love means I'm willing to sacrifice what I want for somebody else. Hate means I'll just go do what I want regardless of how you feel. So whether Steve-O's right or I'm right is irrelevant. We have a difference of opinion and we're still brothers and we'll still do anything and everything for each other, right? So don't go out there looking for anybody that resembles you, that acts like you, that talks like you, that loves like you. Just be the lover and find out that people, hey, they like being loved, and so they're going to be your neighbor, right?
Yep.
So to use the words of Mr. Rogers, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Won't you be my neighbor? That's another happy half hour. So we just completed a happy hour here on July 3rd on Independence Day, Interdependence Day, because we believe that freedom is for all, or it's not at all. Freedom for all, not freedom for all. Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed there. I thought you were going to rock out to It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I was about to really be impressed there.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week with more happy half hours, pouring out digital courage, because we believe that together we are better. So peace out, Steve-O, and
peace in.
Peace in.